Well, my next guest is right. Food prices are only going to go higher as President Obama keeps pushing something that he says will make us greener. The president announcing a new green initiative today in Pennsylvania. With us now is Marc Morano. He is the editor of Climate Depot. And while the president's intention, we should say, is not to make prices go higher, you fear that's what will happen. Explain.
Yes, our policies. First of all, an old Chinese saying, when you have food on the table, there are many problems. When you have no food, there's only one problem. And I think that's part of what we're seeing in Egypt. Right now, President Obama, they're still sticking to ethanol mandates right now that even Al Gore has admitted he only supported because of Iowa farmers during the Iowa caucus in the year 2000. So we're faced with a situation where we're using food crops for fuel that's not even an efficient way of doing it. And this is helping to drive up the price of fuel, not to mention inflation. High oil prices also increase the cost of food. And what President Obama is doing today is essentially can be described as the more the plans fail, the more the planners plan. He's going to come back for more subsidies, more mandates, more tax credits as they go forward to try to manage and control the energy economy.
We should explain, you know this inside and out, Mark, but obviously the more corn or whatever you earmark, no pun intended, for this sort of thing, the less is available to eat. And that drives up
yes.
demand and cuts the amount of supply. But many argue that it's been overstated and overdone, that it isn't nearly that black and white. But you say
Sure.
it is, right? Because at this time when foodstuffs are relatively in short supply anyway, you don't need to do anything to compound the problem.
Yeah,
right?
You can't look at corn ethanol as a sole factor, but it's certainly a driving factor. And a few years ago, I think it was 2008, we faced similar record high prices. But, you know, there's many other factors involved. One of them is the cold year affecting crops,
Right.
Inflationary spending, as I mentioned, the price of oil. But it's not, you can't point to any one single factor. But ethanol is exactly the wrong way to go about this. Keep in mind, too, on energy, Secretary Chu actually came out 2 years ago and said he favored gas prices at the level of the Europeans, which would wreak havoc on food prices in the U.S. And his science advisor, John Holdren, actually said in 1975 the greatest hazard the U.S. faces is too much cheap energy. Again, which cheap energy means cheaper food. So it's all interrelated.
Could I ask you, showing my ignorance here, I apologize up front. Isn't a rising fuel environment, anyway, just regular fuel, going to drive this ethanol thing all the more, though? Because the people who are pushing it are going to say, well, you really need it, because look what's happening to oil. Look at Egypt. You really need an alternative.
Sure.
You need a booster, and this is that.
Right, and corn ethanol is not the solution. One of the solutions, actually, is allowing domestic oil drilling. And Louisiana, a federal judge just held the Obama Interior Department in contempt of court for not lifting the moratoriums on drilling. We can't even drill domestically, and people talk about energy security. So what we need is less regulation. The natural gas is the actual model for this. We passed Russia, and we did it through lack of regulation. Through less regulation.
Mark, thank you very much. Good seeing you.
Thank you now.
All right, we're keeping